Hi, this is Debbie. I'm over on the Spellbinders blog and YouTube channel today with this video, and I thought you'd like to see it here too. The new Glimmer Hot Foil release is already out, and I'm having such fun adding all the glimmer and shine to my projects. Usually when I add glimmer foil, I do so onto a smooth card. However, I love to watercolour at every opportunity, and so today I'd like to take you along my journey experimenting with adding foil to watercolour card. And I'll be using the new and oh so beautiful Merry Christmas Glimmer hot foil plate to do so. I like to use Archer's watercolour card, and there are three textures in their £140 weight range. Rough, as the name suggests, is the roughest, most textured surface. Cold pressed has some texture, and then hot pressed is smooth. Each of the three are the same £140 weight, but I wondered whether the texture would make a difference as to how much impression the plate would make in the card. I love letterpress, and the letterpress effect of these plates is an added bonus to their ability to foil. So we started out by cutting a square of each of the cards, just slightly larger than the Merry Christmas plate. I'm not going to add foil at this point, just to examine the depth of impression, so I align the plate on the hot foil system base plate without heating it up first. I then prepared a sandwich of thin shim and spacer pad, but I added some extra white card in too. It will depend on your machine as to whether you need the extra card or not. I then take these together and ran everything through the Platinum 6 to impress the plate into the card, and I did this for each of the three textures. I've zoomed in here so we can now look at the three pieces closer. The hot press card is smooth in texture, and although the outside edges of the plate are showing a nice impression, the detail at the centre of the plate is being lost. If I wanted to use this card, I would need to increase the pressure in the sandwich, I think. Moving on, and with the slightly textured cold press card, you're getting a beautiful deep impression. As it turns out, you do with the rough cut textured card too. I find it really interesting that each of the cards has the same weight, and yet the impression achieved varies slightly with the two texture samples compared to the smooth one. Eliminating the hot press card and comparing just the cold pressed and rough samples, and I'm not sure there's a massive difference. However, seeing as I have the rough card, I decided I may as well go with that option. My only concern was with this textured card if I was going to get lots of overfoiling. And overfoiling is where the foil catches on areas it's not intended to. I cut a piece of Archer's rough card to be slightly larger than an A2 card base. This gives me room to tape the card to a board to prevent warping when adding lots of water, and also allows for a little wiggle room when trimming the panel down to fit a card front. I then took a broad brush and added a wash of clean, clear water over the whole panel. I'm going to be using the wet on wet watercolour technique, which basically means that you add wet paint to a wet surface. As the surface is wet, the paint spreads and moves with water to give lovely results. The paint I'm using today is Blue Apatite Genuine from Daniel Smith. It's a lovely granulating dusky blue colour. Granulation is when the pigment within the paint settles in the valleys of the surface texture, and seeing as I'm using the most textured card of my three initial samples, then I'm anticipating some wonderful grainy granulation. Not every paint granulates, and for that matter not everyone likes granulation, but for me it adds extra texture and interest and is just another feature of watercolour that I love. Once I was happy with the area covered by the watercolour wash, I then tipped the board slightly as I dried the panel with a heat tool to again keep the paint moving softly downwards. One of my favourite ways to add interest to watercolour is to splatter over the top, and one of my favourite things to splatter is a mix of Perfect Pearls and water, and it just so happens that today I find myself needing to top up my bottle of mixture. I take a palette knife and add a few scoops of Perfect Pearls powder to a mini mister. Then I use a pipette to add water to the powder until the bottle is about 3/4 full. I give it a good shake and then use the tube from the bottle to splatter the sparkly mixture over the watercoloured background. This adds sparkle, but for lovely white opaque highlights, stars, snow, etc., my go-to is permanent white gouache from Winsor & Newton. I mix a dot of this with just a tiny bit of water on my brush and then splatter that mixture over the background too. I made sure all the splatter was fully dry and then removed the tape, and we are now ready for foiling. The advantage of the Glimmer hot foil system is that the base plate has a grid on it, which means that once I worked out where I wanted the foil on my card, I could measure the gap to the top of the card and then align the plate on the base, and then centre and align my card over the top with the required distance. I measured 3 centimetres from the top to where I wanted the foil, and so would lay my card over the plate, 3 squares on the base plate higher than the hot foil plate, if that makes sense. My base plate is heating up, and so for safety measure I made final adjustments using the hot foil tweezers and then was ready for adding the foil. Silver and blue are always a great combination, and so I picked out silver foil and cut to size to fit over the Merry Christmas Glimmer hot foil plate. I trimmed off excess foil to help prevent overfoiling and then laid the foil over the plate shiny side down, followed by the watercolour panel, again watercolour side down. I've had the base plate clicked into the machine and heating up already, and you can see that the platform ready light is lit green, and so I pressed the timer button and added the rest of the sandwich ready for running through the Platinum 6, and then waited for the flashing timer light to turn a solid green. I then unclicked the base plate from the machine and ran the sandwich through the Platinum 6. And here's the moment of truth. I can immediately see that there is some lovely foiling going on with the Merry Christmas design, but that as I wondered about, there is some overfoiling. This could be due to the texture of the card, or that I made the sandwich too tight with the added card in order to get that lovely deep impression of the plate on the watercolour card. Either way, it doesn't matter, as I found overfoiling to be a really easy thing to fix with a Tombow Mono sand eraser. This gritty eraser gently rubs off the surface, and when rubbed over the areas of excess foil, the foil lifts so quickly it's almost as if it wasn't really stuck. Working around detailed areas of the foil design is not too much of a worry either, because the main design is pressed into the card and therefore sits at a lower level than the overfoiling around it. The eraser skims over the debossed areas and so only removes the excess foil. I trimmed the panel down to be slightly smaller than an A2 card base, and I have to say I love this just as it is, and I can easily see myself setting up a system to create multiples of this card. However, I do like to add dimension when I can, and the new Ornament Glimmer hot foil set has beautifully detailed foliage dies. Watch out for a card I made with this set that I'll be sharing on my blog soon. The ornament foiled and then paired with the dies is gorgeous. I wanted to keep this card to a simple blue, silver and white colour scheme, and so I cut the detailed dies out of card, except not white card, it's ivory. I always find ivory card to be a better match to the off-white colour of watercolour card. I die cut a whole bunch of the detailed dies in the end with the intention of creating a border along the top of the card. But in the end, I preferred the pared back version with just a trio of pine branches sticking out over one corner. I added a few sequins, gems and droplets to embellish, and then added foam adhesive tape to the back of the panel and adhered to a card base cut and scored from ivory card. And so there you have it, the lovely Merry Christmas Glimmer hot foil plate, silver foiled over a watercolour background. I do love the look of this, the deep impression of the foil on the textured background, and yes, there was some overfoiling, but it really wasn't a problem and took just a moment to fix. I'll leave links in the YouTube description below to the products that I've used today, as well as the link to the coordinating blog post over at limedoodledesign.com. I want to thank you for joining me today, and if you've enjoyed this tutorial, I'd be delighted if you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this channel. Also, if you'd like to get notified when a new video is out, don't forget to hit the bell button next to the subscribe button too. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.